The story of Camp Roosevelt is important to our nation and to our conservation heritage because in 1929 we had a Great Depression where we had 25% unemployment, especially in our urban areas. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt wanted to help the people of the United States. So he enacted legislation called the New Deal, and one of the New Deal components, probably one of the most successful New Deal programs, was the Civilian Conservation Corps. In order to enact the Civilian Conservation Corps, he enlisted the help of federal agencies, the National Park Service, the U.S. Forest Service, state parks, other land management agencies to host Civilian Conservation Corps camps. Camp Roosevelt, because we're located 70 miles from Washington, D.C., was the location of the first Civilian Conservation Corps camp in the nation. On April 17th, 1933, the first enrollees came over the mountain on foot because their buses were mired in mud after heavy rains, and they entered the location of Camp Roosevelt. Now, imagine that this area was completely undeveloped. The first thing the boys had to do was build their camp. And they did that in mud, they did that in snow, and they had to erect their own tents, they had to start erecting their own buildings. So if we were to take a day in the life of a CCC enrollee, what we would find is that the camps were actually run by the military, Quartermaster Corps. So if you were a CCC enrollee, you would have been housed and fed by the military. Many of the young men who came to the camps learned job skills. They were first taught to read and write, and then they may have learned blacksmithing, carpentry, and driving. They all wanted to learn to drive a truck, and that was the most popular class throughout the camp. They usually were in the Civilian Conservation Corps for approximately 6 months. That was their tour of duty. When they left the camps, they had a job skill. They gained an average of 12 pounds. These folks had been starving. They had never had new clothes. They hadn't had a lot to eat because of the Depression. So coming to the Civilian Conservation Corps camps, it was an amazing kind of a bump to the economy, to the nation as a whole. One young man loved Camp Roosevelt so much that he actually petitioned the Forest Service and the powers above, Department of Agriculture, to establish Camp Roosevelt as a recreation area. So in 1965, Camp Roosevelt became what it is today, a recreation area for future generations to use. As you explore the George Washington and Jefferson National Forests, one of the things that I love to think about is that many of the roads, many of the trails, many of the trees that you see were actually improved on, built, or planted by the Civilian Conservation Corps. Today, as you explore Camp Roosevelt, you can take an interpretive walk. There are 15 interpretive signs that will show you what the buildings look like when the camp was in operation, and then you find the remnants of the old buildings, the foundations. And what you want to do is take a close look at those foundations, though, because to me, they're absolutely phenomenal. You see the stone masonry that are in the foundations, which survives, and it survives for over 85 years. It's kind of a forgotten history, the reason being that the Civilian Conservation Corps has never really been taken off the books. We have a modern Climate Conservation Corps, we have modern Civilian Conservation Corps, which are made up of youths, which now happen to be male and female. The Civilian Conservation Corps was only for young men, and they do similar work. We can really trace back our heritage of stewardship to the young men in the Civilian Conservation Corps and the excellent work that they provided the nation in a time of need.